I think all the camera stuff looks good. You guys can hear the music all right. Yep. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, welcome everybody. Good morning. This is Jamming Without a Net at the very first annual Quarantine Dulcimer Festival. I hope you guys had a great time yesterday and had a great time at the concert last night. That was a lot of fun, and I've never seen a concert like that before in my life, and it was a lot of fun. And it's amazing because normally when we're at these workshops and festivals, the instructors all show up and one company's got the sound and the stage and all that stuff, but every single performer had to be their own sound production team, and it was just really cool to see everybody's different setup and backdrops and everything else. So I'm looking forward to tonight, and I am last this evening. I believe the time slot is like 9:45, so expect me to be super punchy and I'm sure many of you will be too. So Jamming Without a Net typically is a workshop that I teach for people who want to get in not only into the jam and be able to be that one person that you always see at the jam who seems to play every song. And you're like, how do they know every single song? And the real answer to that, and I found out by talking to some people, is that they don't know every song. But what they're able to do is listen to what's being played and either anticipate where it's going next or be able to figure out in the moment what's the best thing they can do to contribute to the tune itself. And that is an art, but it's not an art that is exclusive to people who spend $40,000 a year on an expensive musical education. It's basically just basic music theory. And I'm going to teach you some visual cues, some audio cues, and some other things that'll help you get up to speed very quickly without having to go deep into your wallet and get into student loan debt and all that stuff. So here are 5 basic things that I want you to keep in mind. And this has to do with jamming. It also has to do generally with improvisation, because that's largely what we're doing when we go into a jam and we don't know the tunes. You know, unless you're a quick study, one of those people that can pick up a tune the second or third time through, usually you're kind of left to playing counter melody or playing chords or chops or something like that, and having some fun while you're at it. So it is improvisation and making it up on the fly. So here are 5 things to know to help you do the best you can in that situation. And number 1 is know your key. So this is super important. The key is basically the rules for every song that we play in. And like most rules, they are made to be broken. But in most cases, especially with the mountain dulcimer, we're kind of locked in because we don't have all of the notes. So when you're in DAD tuning, we've got 6 keys that we can play in that have all the notes of the scales and all of the chords. And those keys are D, G, and A. And then the relative minors of those keys, which are B minor, E minor, and F sharp minor. And those are the 6 keys that we can play in with wild abandon. We can cover all the ground. Then there are other keys we can play in and we can kind of fake it. We can leave out notes that we don't have. We can leave out chords that we don't have, but we can still kind of get along. But generally 6 keys. And once you know that key, you can get an idea of where to go and where not to go. For example, let's take the key of D major, for example. D major's got 2 sharps. That means that these 2 notes, F sharp and C sharp, will not be natural. They'll be sharp notes. And so you'll know where all your F sharps and C sharps are on your fretboard. Ideally, you should. And here's why. Here's the D major scale going up the melody string. So it's D, E, F sharp, right there at the 2nd fret, G, A, B, C sharp at the 6.5 fret, and 7 at the octave. So many of you have been in a classroom where people have done that scale, and somewhere along the line you heard this. And you go, who was that? That wasn't me. And what that was basically was somebody playing the 6th fret with C natural as opposed to C sharp. What I just played there was C and C sharp together. They're a half step apart. It's the smallest interval between notes that exists, and it gives a dissonant sound. So some people would call that a wrong note. What that is actually an unintended musical event. What we're really talking about here is knowing that in the key of D, you don't want to play the 6th fret because it's a C natural. You want to play C sharp. So knowing those rules will allow you to make the right choices when they're provided to us. Normally the mountain dulcimer does it for us, but because we do have extra frets, we have to be a little careful when we're playing around in our keys. So know your key signature and know your scales, and that'll really, really open up your confidence in the playing in the jam and doing improv. And that goes along with number 2, know your scales. They really go hand in hand. Number 3 is listen, and we'll be talking about some things you can do that will tell you where the song is moving, even if you don't know the song itself. Listen very carefully, and one of the big tips I can give to anybody when they're trying to figure out what chord is being played is to listen to the lowest note you can hear. Typically, the chords being played by people, the lowest note is going to be the root note of the chord, and therefore it's going to be the name of the chord. So instead of trying to listen to all 3 notes or all 4 notes that are in a chord, listen for the lowest sound that you can hear, the lowest pitch that you can hear, and then hum that, match that, and then see if you can find that on your dulcimer, on the bass string. If you can match that lowest tone with your bass string, that's going to show you what chords they're playing, and you can just play the bar all the way across the strings. And so I'll give you some musical mnemonics that will help you to tell specifically not only what that chord is, but where it's possibly going to go next. And you can anticipate what's coming up. Number 4 is be brave. Timidity is not going to help you at all in the jam. And you don't really have to worry about it so much because in the jam, nobody can hear you anyway, right? Everybody's sort of doing their own thing, and if you're a mountain dulcimer player, you're probably sitting next to a banjo or a fiddle anyway, or you're in front of the hammer dulcimers. So this is a great opportunity for you to be bold and just let it rip, because that big sonic canvas that you've got out there is allowing you the opportunity to experiment and try new things and see what works and see what doesn't. So be brave and just go out there. And if it's not a climate where you feel comfortable or safe doing that, maybe there's too many, I don't know, shall we say, constricted folks. You know, they're the ones that you're playing something really cool like the fiddler's played his last tune for the night, and you get all loose and happy, and you start doing those mandolin trills. And they look over and they just give you the stink eye like, that's not written in the tablature. And you're like, oh, lighten up, Francis. We're having some fun here. So I always say to people, if they're in a jam where people come down on you or tell you not to bring your music, find another jam, because you want to be able to be free and just let yourself loose and have fun. And by all means, explore, because it's serendipity that leads sometimes to the biggest light bulbs if you allow yourself to do that. And number 5 is flow. And I know that's sort of ambiguous, but just kind of let yourself go. Don't rein yourself in. And that maybe can go along with be brave. It's just kind of go with the flow. Trust your instinct. You've loved music probably all your life. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. Get in the groove and pull from that vast musical repository of acquired knowledge and accumulated info that you've got in your heart and in your head. And go with that. Trust your instincts and just go with the flow. So those are just the 5 things that I always kind of keep in mind, especially when I'm getting into a new situation. You guys might think that I kind of go anywhere and just jump in and do things. But if I'm in a new festival, I do tend to sort of hang around and take a wait and see to see how things are going to pan out, instead of just bursting down the door and going, let's play so-and-so, you know. Get an idea, take the temperature first before I jump in there. There's some other stuff on this page, and it's for you to check out later. Mainly this really scary looking pie chart to the right of this screen. It's called the circle of fifths, and it's also known as the cycle of fourths. And it's really, both are correct. And this is the musical Rosetta Stone. And understanding this and learning it is one of the keys to really having all of these bits of music theory come together. So when I first started teaching myself music theory in 2006 or so, I realized pretty early on that this was very, very important. And so I memorized it. And I had no idea what it meant or signified or what it was going to be good for, but I had an idea it was very important, and so I memorized it. And not all of it. Around the outside there, you'll see a series of letters, and those, of course, are our letter names. They're also the names of keys. And if you go clockwise around the circle, the distance, the interval between all of those notes and keys is the distance of a fifth, an interval of a fifth. So from C to G is a fifth, from G to D is a fifth, from D to A is a fifth, a distance of a fifth from the root. If you were considering that first note the root, the next one over is the fifth. If you go counterclockwise around the circle, you end up going intervals of a fourth. So from C to F is a fourth, from C to B flat is a fourth, so forth and so on. A lot of mountain dulcimer players will see this and they'll go, I don't know if I want to learn all of those different keys because frankly we can only use about a quarter of them. What good is this to me? Well, later on as you get more advanced in your playing and more emboldened, you're probably going to end up crossing over into other instruments where this knowledge will be helpful to you. I've seen it happen many times. The mountain dulcimer is a gateway drug. You know, people kind of get into that instrument. It's like, oh, this is super easy. I can handle it. And then once they get a grasp of how the music works, they go, I think I'll pick up ukulele. And next thing you know, they're one of those people with a cart with 18 instruments in it going around the festival. So it's a good idea at least to memorize this from 12 o'clock C to 6 o'clock F sharp. And it wouldn't hurt to go one more to 7 o'clock, which would be C sharp, because that will give you all 7 sharps that are in those key signatures. Just memorize that much, and later on, and I'll use some examples today, it'll become very helpful to you. And I'll give you some examples in a little bit. Right now I'm going to go ahead and move down here and we'll take a look at our D major scale, the tablature, and another element of music theory that's really important called scale degrees. So up here at the very top we have got the standard music notation. I'm not sure how many of you out there actually do read standard music notation. It isn't necessary to play mountain dulcimer. It is helpful though if you learn it, and another one of those things where it's not a bad idea. Reason being, there's a great site called thesession.org. That's thesession.org. And it's a great archive of old fiddle tunes and Celtic music, old time bluegrass, folk music. And oftentimes you can go back and find these great old tunes, and the people who sort of caretake this site are die-hard in-the-wool enthusiasts and lovers of Americana. And so they've gone back and they have distilled these tunes to the very essence. They can tell you who originally wrote them, who originally recorded them when they started recording tunes. And so you can be guaranteed that you're going to get the real deal tune as opposed to a song that has been put through the telephone line game and changed so much that it no longer resembles its original version. And so thesession.org is a great place to find that. And oftentimes you're going to find these tunes in what's called a lead sheet. The lead sheet's going to be just the melody and the chord symbols. And so it's up to you to be able to play the melody, pick it up from the standard music notation, and then add your own chords. So if you're able to read standard music notation, you can go in there and be able to learn literally thousands of new songs that have not been tabbed out for mountain dulcimer. And it's a great way of learning new tunes. So thesession.org is the name of that website, and it's one of my favorite places to go on the web. Just an idea about trying to learn standard music notation. I still can't read it for piano. All those notes stacked on top of each other make my eyes cross, but I can read one note at a time slowly enough to figure out a melody line, and that's really all you need. Just the treble clef. Don't worry about the whole staff. So we have 8 notes there total, and 8 notes in the scale. Octo is Latin for the word 8, so it's an octave from the beginning of the scale to the end. We go from D, and then E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp are the 7 different notes of the scale. We repeat the beginning note at the very end, and it's an octave higher, so we end with D, an octave above D where we started. Right below these notes on the staff, you'll see the tablature for mountain dulcimer to play that scale. So we've got 0 for open, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6.5 fret, and then the 7th fret to give us the octave. Down below the first 7 numbers, It will not be underneath the octave, only the first 7. You're going to see a series of Roman numerals, and those are the scale degrees. So you'll see that they're uppercase and lowercase. We can't do that with Arabic numerals, and that is why we use the Roman numerals, because there's a special meaning behind why they're upper and lowercase. Notice that 1, 4, and 5 are uppercase. That's I, V, and V. And then notice that 2, 3, and 6 are lowercase. That's 2 I's, 3 I's, and VI. And then notice that under the 7th note we have VII, and then there's a little degree symbol. So here's the theory. Basically, every note is assigned a number. So you can number the notes of the scale from 1 to 7. But you can also build chords off of every single note of the scale using that note as the root or the lowest pitched note in the chord. So if you build chords off of the 1st, 4th, and 5th notes of the scale using the notes of the scale, you will end up with major chords. If you build off of the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th notes of the scale, you'll end up with minor chords. And if you build off the 7th note of the scale, you'll get a diminished chord. And once again, this is using the 7 notes of the scale. So that's why we play D, G, and A major. But notice we don't play D minor, G minor, or A minor. We can play A minor with extra frets. We can play D minor with extra frets, but we're not supposed to be able to do that. Notice that we mostly play E minor, F sharp minor, and B minor. We don't play F sharp major, B major, or E major. We can with extra frets, but we're not supposed to be able to because they're built off the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th scale degrees. And then the 7th, we have a diminished chord, which is an odd-sounding little thing. Doesn't show up much in Dulcimer music, but it's a really pretty chord. Let me show you a fun little trick here before we move on. I know I've got a scale hanging out back here. Okay. I'm going to show you this quick trick here about how to know which notes go inside of a chord. We're going to use the C major scale as an example. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. I'm going to go into markup here. And this is a cool little parlor trick right here. All right. So let's start with C. So C is number 1. We're going to build a C major chord. And here's the scale. You only want to have the 7 notes laid out. You don't want to put the octave in there. So starting with C, we're going to hop, skip, and jump until we end up with 3 notes. So I'm going to start with C. I'm going to skip over D and arrive at E. So E is the 2nd note we're going to add to the C major chord. C is the first one. That's the root. E is the 3rd. And now I'm going to go ahead and skip over F and go to G. And there I've got the ingredients for a C major chord. C, E, and G. So let's say I want to build an F major chord. Remember, we're talking about the 1, 4, and 5th notes of the scale. So I'm going to start with F, skip over G, and go to A. And then this scale wraps around. So I'm going to skip over B. I'm going to end up at C. So F, A, and C are the 3 notes you're going to find in an F major chord. Let's try the 5, starting with G. I'm going to hop over A, go to B. Then we're going to continue around, hop over C, and go to D. So G, B, and D are the 3 notes inside of a G major chord. So those are the 3 major chords in C, C, F, and G. So remember I talked about let's build chords off the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th notes of the scale. Let's try that. Let's start with D. D, we're going to skip and go to F. F, we're going to skip and go to A. D, F, and A make up a D minor chord. So you see where this is going. Let's look at that weird chord, that diminished chord at the very end there. B. So we're going to start with B. We're going to skip C and go to D. We're going to skip E and go to F. B, D, and F are the ingredients of a B diminished chord. Everything you need to know about the chords inside of a scale and a key are located in the scale. Right there in front of you, all you have to do is know how to spell the scale, know how to write the scale out. That's some really, really good stuff for helping you determine what are the chords I can play in this key and what notes am I going to play in this key. If you stick to the notes of the scale, everything will be fine. And if you play the chords in the scale, everything will be fine as well.